Mission Impossible. A show slash movie slash game that has one of the coolest theme songs ever created. Unfortunately, I've never seen the show, and it's been years since I've watched any of the movies, so I'm just going to skip pretending I know what I'm talking about and go right into the game. Mission Impossible for the NES was created based off the TV show that ran from 1988 to 1990. In a nutshell, you got three guys who belong to a special government organization named the Impossible Mission Force that must save Dr. O, who was abducted. You go through 6 stages of pure hell to find the Doctor and save him and end the world. It may sound easy, but although the game was named off of the show, it's also flaunting its difficulty a tad bit. First off, each of the 3 characters you can play as have different skill sets and weapons. Max is the dude with the gun, and since he has the longest range of the trio, naturally he's the slowest walker. This can be an extreme game changer, as there are parts where speed is necessary to avoid getting hit, especially in areas like the conveyor belt and the museum stage. However, since he does have the range, he can often kill enemies before they even know you're there. His second weapon is a blast of TNT, which is set by pressing B once and then detonated by pressing it again. When tripping alarms, he's a lifesaver, as that TNT can blast through the intruding enemies with ease. Your second guy is a guy named Grant, and he's the fastest dude available. He throws a mean right hook, and by mean, I mean it's usually a one-hit knockout. You think that since he has little range he's the worst off, but that's not entirely true. Whereas Max can kill enemies before they get in range to attack, Grant can often just run up to them around corners and punch them before they're able to retaliate. His secondary weapon is a grenade that emits sleeping gas, but it doesn't last for a very long time. It's not entirely useful for the most part, and he also has the ability to unlock certain coded doors. Basically, you just walk up to the door while using Grant, and a code will appear. Just cycle through it until you hear a high-pitched beep, which signifies that you found the right number for the slot. Do this 3 more times, and the door will unlock. With Grant, it's impossible to fail this, as time stops. Your final agent is a guy named Nicholas, a master of disguise. He takes an interesting primary weapon with him, a boomerang. This could be incredibly useful, or it can be damaging in certain areas, such as areas containing magnets, because they do affect the trajectory of the boomerang. However, you can use that as a severe advantage as well, if you know how. His secondary skill is to disguise himself as an opposing thug for a few seconds, allowing you to wade through enemy lines with them none the wiser. When you compare him with the other two, he's the average guy. His boomerangs can be a pain in the ass to aim accurately though, so for the most part, I didn't use them very often unless it needed a damage taker. The best thing about these 3 characters though, is that each has their own life bar. In order to make that even better, you're allowed to switch them at will. When you press start, you can switch the active agent. This can be important if you need to swap guys in order to prevent one from being killed. Just be careful though, because if someone dies, they're gone for good in that stage. And more often than not having a full team makes things that much harder. Don't get too worried if one of your characters is drastically hurt though. There are the occasional first aid kits laying around, as well as red boxes that replenish your secondary weapons. However, as I said, they're rare, so they should only be used when absolutely necessary. One of the first things to note is that there are plenty of environmental hazards. First and foremost, the gang can't swim, so if you fall into water, you're gone. Pits will obviously kill you outright as well. What makes this even worse is that there's certain enemies that carry a shield and will push you into a pitfall hazard. To make it even worse, they take about 6 or 7 hits before falling. This is the sole reason why I can't get past the beginning part of the 4th stage. I'll get to that in a bit. There's some awesome music in this game. It's incredibly catchy and it won't get old at all. There's a few smaller songs that will repeat in certain areas, but for the most part, the game keeps to original tones for each of its stages. So instead of me continuously talking about the perks and nuances of the game, how about I actually start doing a rundown of them? It's going to be the best way to explain this game's style. Before I even start, there's 6 stages. Levels 2 and 5 contain a different style of play, but the others pretty much go like this. You have to traverse the level looking for an informant to give you an ID card. These cards are used to unlock a door near the end of the stage. Without it, you can't finish the level. While you're searching around, you may need to flip switches to solve puzzles like moving walls and floor pits. Once you hit the end of the stage, there may or may not be a boss waiting for you. One little note though, the keycard often changes locations between 2 or 3 places. If you encounter the wrong NPC, he'll say you have been caught, and 4 alien-type things will appear trying to kill you. They do a lot of damage fast, so be sure to either run or kill them quickly. Max's TNT is worth using to kill them quickly. Now that that's out of the way, onto level 1. It's in some city full of small buildings and civilians on the road. If you kill a civilian, you lose this current character, so be sure only to hit the bastards that actually shout and start chasing you. Also, on occasion a car will drive through the center of the area. It shouldn't need to be said, but if you get hit by this, you're dead. You have several different places you can go, all leading to a sewer. My best route is to open up the electronic door in case you need it later, but then take the alleyway. You have guys throwing Molotovs at you, but they're slow enough that you can sneak around it. The whole purpose of using this alleyway is that there's a switch in the back area that you need to flip. You'll then enter another building, then go down into the sewer. And this is where the game starts showing you how impossible the mission is. At first, it's not so bad. You have narrow platforms with occasional flushing water that will damage you if you don't cross fast enough. If you only have max at this point, you're screwed. If that wasn't enough, this is where you'll actually encounter those infernal shield wielders. They'll just try to push you into that murky water, and the first few times, they'll probably succeed until you get the hang of it. Later on, you'll reach a spot with a bridge and some sort of thing that pushes you away. Again, the first time, you're pretty much screwed, as you probably won't know that they'll push you in there. However, you do need to figure it out, because if you try to take the right path, you'll hit a trap. Well, unless you turn it off. Past all of that, you'll enter a room with nothing but those stupid-ass pushing things. Why are there so many freaking things around here? Then, going downstairs, you enter a room full of grates and guys with freaking flamethrowers attempting to fry your ass. Eventually, you'll get through all this, and you'll get to the boss. A pair of robotic arms. No matter how many times you try to defeat it, you can't. There's actually just a switch that you need to flip that will just turn the fuckers off. The next room just contains an NPC that tells you where Dr. O is, and then just dies. I don't understand who this guy is and if he's good or bad, but honestly, I don't care. The second stage is a romp in a Venetian river. You're racing through the canal, jumping off of barrels and shooting enemy boats. Eventually a helicopter will show up and try to destroy you. Keep in mind that, although the stage isn't too terribly difficult, you do only get one life bar and cannot switch agents. The third stage is a museum, and this is the part that frustrated me to no end. It's not as cryptic as the first stage. The city had 7 switches in various locations, plenty of pathways, and multiple ways of doing things. Here, there's only one switch, and everything is pretty linear on where you need to go. First, all the guys walking around in the main lobby look like civilians, but each and every one of them will attempt to kill you, so just attack them first and be done with it. Also, the game doesn't take an insane turn of difficulty until this spot right here, with the freaking conveyor belts. It seems innocent enough, until those fucking statues start slashing at you. What the fuck? And that's not even the worst part! Later on you have a choice. You can either brave the conveyor belt again, or you can travel through a narrow hallway to turn it off. Do you really want to walk through all those statues in the opposite direction? I didn't think so! So of course you're going to want to go through that hallway. But if you only have Nicholas alive, don't even frickin' bother. The fucking statues come alive, and they hurt like hell. Grant can somehow punch them to death, and Max can use his TNT to blow them up as long as you watch the shrapnel coming your way. This doesn't seem so bad in the beginning, but then they start waiting until they can completely surround you. Your reward for all of this is just a switch to turn off the conveyor belt. But the catch is that when you hit the belt room again, the statues start coming for you again. Thankfully, it's much easier to avoid them this time around, but still, why put all of this in here? And I've heard this isn't even the hardest section of the game, and this took me many tries and hours to finally finish it. Oh, and there's an actual boss this time around. It's some bastard that clones himself, throws shurikens at you, and has the ground crumble at your feet. If you stand or walk in the same spot too many times, it'll crumble, therefore creating a hole you'll just fall through. If you're just using Max, you're at a severe disadvantage just due to his speed. If you die, there's continues and passwords, but it only starts you from the beginning of the stage and without the pass. That's right, continues just mean that you don't need to input the password again. You still need to redo the same stage, so say hello to those freaking statues again. I was able to hit level 4, but then I was starting to get fed up with the cheap kills of the game. Stage 4 starts in some sort of cliffside, and you'll be walking around avoiding bullets, collapsing bridges, and best of all, those shield fuckers. There's really no way of protecting yourself from them, and after multiple attempts, I just called it off and admitted defeat. Yeah, that's right, the game has bested me. I'm ashamed, but go ahead and try yourself and see how well you do. One final note before I wrap this up. There seems to be a few spots where things just repeat for way too long. One example is both of the statue areas in the museum. On Another spot in the museum is the area with the magnets. It just goes on and on and on, and it just doesn't seem to end. By the time you hit the end of the room, you're just glad it's over. But was it really necessary to have the room just drone on like that? Mission Impossible is pretty much an impossible game. I remember as a kid getting to the 5th stage, which is a downhill mountainside where you ski avoiding enemies. Pretty similar to the 2nd level. I can't remember anything about the last stage though. If you want a game that will give you a broken controller, this is it. That's not to say it's a bad game, but the difficulty probably could have been toned down a wee bit and not affected the gameplay that much. Final score? 8 out of 10. This is Reaper. Happy fragging.